Well, from Dick Johnson to Jim Richards, here's Greg Rust.
Thanks very much, Lee. Yes, down here with the man on the front row of the grid. Jimmy, a great result last night. Let's see if you can do it again today.
Well, I hope so, yeah. I mean, we had a great run last night in the night. Haven't done that for a fair while. But, yeah, no, if we can come away with a win here, it'll be fantastic.
The new car certainly seems to be coming on strong. A reasonable performance at Eastern Creek, but much better here.
Yes, I know we're learning the car again and how to make these little GTP cars go fast. And so far, we're very happy.
Best of luck, Jimmy.
Thank you, Russ.
Jimmy will team with John Bowe too in the Caterpillar Ford team for the Enduros later this year. Of course, the season finishing the FAI 1000 Classic at Bathurst, so great to see Jimmy back in a V8 too, Craig.
Yeah, Jimmy very, very happy with the new Cat deal he's pulled off for both his Porsche and, of course, the V8 drives. Not real happy about the company car that Cat had given him, though, the D9 Bulldozer. But Jimmy said he'd drive it anyhow, hell.
He drives everything else, doesn't he? Sitting alongside Jim Richards on the front row is 4 times Australian Porsche Cup champ in Jeff Morgan in the Vodafone Porsche 911 RSCS. There he is on screen right now. A real hard charger, very experienced. You may not have seen a lot of this guy, but watch him go in this race. As we said, he's been lurking around, not only lurking around, but dominating the Porsche Cup Series for many years. Now he's stepped up to the GTPs as the cars head off on their warm-up lap.
Yes, Morgan's been 4 times Australian Porsche Cup champion. This is the car that Cameron McConville took to a win in 1996 in the Australian GT Production Car Championship, the Warwick Fabrics car. So Morgan's certainly taken over a decent car and put it to very, very good effect last night. He passed Ed Aitken after the safety car incident in the 1-hour race we had, which was caused by Spiritus in the Maserati, which is on screen now, spearing off. But Morgan did a tremendous job, pressured Aitken all the way, finally passed him twice and took second place.
All right, as they wind around on their warm-up, let's have a look at the grid for the Century Batteries GTP Championship. Jim Richards from pole alongside Jeff Morgan. Row 2 is Ed Aitken and Darren Palmer in the Ferrari. Beric Linton in the BMW and Jeff Full, the first of the Class B competitors, ahead of John Tulin and Paula Elstrick.
Going back to Michael Simpson, first in the sports car class from John Cowley, Mark Cohen in the Commodore from David Ratcliffe in the Camry, Robert Chadwick in the Magna, Richard Davis in the Commodore, Peter Boylan, Subaru, and Perry Spiritus in the Maserati.
Go back to Nick Lucas and Kozzy Kalazidis. First of Class E, Clyde Lawrence, Craig Dondas, Paul Matolo, Dennis Cribben, Terry Bosanjak, who returns to GTP land after a layoff. You might remember his huge accident in 1996 at the beginning. It was the first round, I think, from memory, Craig, at Amaroo Park.
Horrific, absolutely horrific that was, Lee.
This here for you on screen now, this is, well, the new part, if you wish, where they come down the Adelaide Straight. This is on Bartels Road. You used to go, if we talk about old terms, Grand Prix circuit over to Rundle Road. So we'll talk more about that throughout the telecast and explain to you. This isn't something new here, though. This very tight hairpin at the end of the Brabham Straight, the short Brabham Straight. Good overtaking point on the circuit.
Very fast through here too, these GTP cars. Some back to second, some can ride through here in third. Watch the battle in the Australian family sedan class between the Magna and the Camry, the Commodore. They're all in there, and of course the Commodore of Mark Cohen's took the win in last night's 1-hour race from David Ratcliffe, who's traditionally been pretty dominant with the Magna. So watch the battle between the Magna, the Commodore, and the Camry.
The GTPs and the V8s going hand in hand. This category has been with the V8s for, in terms of endurance races, for some time now. Of course, they stepped it up last year with a 1-hour endurance race before the Tickford 500 at Sandown, then the 3-hour enduro on Saturday afternoon, which has become a real feature at Bathurst now.
And good to see production car racing back at Mount Panorama. Of course, these are true production cars. We call it the Showroom Showdown, limited modifications, and a great snapshot when you look at the 6 different classes of what you see on the road today, from sports cars, supercars, right through to the Suzukis, the Proton, the battle for the Australian family sedan. So the Showroom Showdown really is a snapshot of what you can see. But getting set for a start for this 12-lap race, the Etsa Power GT production car race here at Adelaide.
Jimmy Richards sitting nicely on pole position alongside Jeff Morgan. The Porsche 911 RSCSs, they seem to be purposely built for this category. They just do so well. They've dominated this category for so long. Ready to go. Jeff Full is well placed on row 3 in the Subaru WRX. Away we go. Jimmy Richards got away to a good start. Moves up along the inside of Jeff Morgan as they head down to the centre chicane for the first time.
John Schuland in there too, and the Nissan Skyline GDSR 4-wheel drive twin turbo Nissan. He's done well to qualify well inside the top 10. Beric Linton coming going through in the BMW M3R. Looks like they're all pretty well safely through the first chicane.
That is tight. The centre chicane, that is a very hard section of the circuit as they sort themselves out. Perry Spiridis and the Maserati all working their way around. John Tulin going on through.
Paula Elstrick up there too in the Mazda RX-7 twin turbo, running in the Class B, the Autobahn high performance class. Cohen, I think, has got the jump in Class C as well, but it's Richards from Morgan, Aitken, then Darren Palmer in the Ferrari.
John Cowley in the big Commodore GTS R. It's all going through there as they head out of Hutt Street onto the Adelaide straight underneath the VB sign. Here they come. This is a difficult section of the track. It's a very tight right-hander. They hit from top speed all the way back, right down through the gears. Then they have onto the a good run onto the short Brabham straight.
See Perry Spiridis coming up on the inside in the Maserati. In fact, he had an off last night, caused a safety car incident. And of course, the qualifying positions or the starting positions today were really the results of last night's race. That's why Spiridis is well down. So watch him come through the field.
Lap 1 of 12. It's only a quick sprint around the streets of Adelaide.
And to keep your eye on Darren Palmer too, the Lycra Ferrari car 27. Remember problems yesterday and didn't actually get to do one lap in qualifying, so he's still really learning the track. But was only 0.6 of a second off Jimmy Richards' fastest time towards the end of the 1 hour race last night.
Well, here we go. It's Porsche, Ferrari as they come across the line. Jim Richards, Jeff Morgan, Ed Aitken as they head through the centre chicane for the first time. Darren Palmer trying to stay with them in the Ferrari F355. Then Merrick Clinton in the BMW from Jeff Full, the first of the Class B cars.
Richards hard on the brakes. Morgan just behind him. Aitken now closes up behind Morgan. But it's Porsche, 1, 2, 3. Then Ferrari. Further back in the field, of course, BMW in the hands of Linton. Subaru in the hands of Full. Tulin driving the Nissan Skyline.
Darren Palmer, as we mentioned, son of Ross Palmer, well-known Australian businessman, entrepreneur, and who had a lot to do with Dick Johnson in the early days. Palmer Tube Mills. There's the class update for you. Bottom of screen now. Young Darren's been given a golden opportunity this year to drive this Ferrari, as he did last year at the Bathurst 3-hour enduro with Neil Crompton when they ran second, a very close second to Jim Richards and Peter Fitzgerald.
By 0.2 of a second for the closest Bathurst finished on record. So a tremendous drive for both Crompton and Morgan, having a look down the inside of the Cat Porsche and putting a fair bit of pressure on Jimmy Richards now.
Jeff Morgan really starting to apply the pressure. Here we go. Ed Aitken is tucked in nicely as well. Darren Palmer will see what he can do, but he's got some pretty experienced campaigners up ahead.
Three Porsches pretty most identical except for tyres. Jimmy Richards, of course, running on Falcon tyres. We've got Morgan running Michelin tyres, Aitken on Pirelli tyres. So while the cars are pretty much the same in specification, tyres really do play a significant part in this.
We go back, Jeff Full in the Subaru, still doing well. In 6th outright and top of the pops in terms of the Autobahn Class B leaders. We go all the way back through C. Top leader in C is Mark Cohen at the moment.
Bad luck for Terry Bosanjak, failed to start this race after blowing yet another engine. That's 2 engines for the weekend in the Polyair Mazda RX-7 SP twin turbo. So unfortunately, Bos has packed it up and taken it home. And was running quite well last night, qualified strongly here, but has had some kind of problem with the car over the past 2 or 3 days, which has resulted in 2 engine failures in the Mazda. Darren Palmer in there in the Ferrari, going through now, broke a half shaft yesterday, and would you believe it, a HQ driver, a HQ racer here at Adelaide, happened to have a Ferrari F355 home in the garage, went home, pulled the parts of it, and brought it back to give to Darren. Of course, every HQ driver has a Ferrari at home.
Yeah, sure. Down onto the Brabham straight they go. There's Merrick Clinton in the BMW M3R. Then we go back to Jeff Full. Here he is, the leader of the Autobahn Class B brigade. He did very well at Eastern Creek.
He did. In fact, he's been absolutely annihilating everybody in this class. In the car that Chris Kasparis won the championship for in Class B last year. It's superbly prepared by Chris and Nick and the boys from Napi and EFI. Fully, of course, has plenty of experience. He's been a Super Tourer driver. He's raced rally cars, won the production car class, the Australian production car class of last year's Australian Rally Championship Super Series. Been around for a long, long time, driven at Bathurst many times for Toyota, and is really enjoying his return to motorsport.
Yeah, I think quite a few people will remember Jeff. He used to drive the Foxtel Peugeot Super Tourer along with Mark Adderton back in 1996. So he's no slouch and really enjoying Class B. There he is ahead of Paula Elstrick. then John Cowley and Peter Boylan. Good to see Peter back in the Quirks refrigeration entry.
Yeah, broke a CV joint yesterday, but they've repaired the car. Richard Davis in there too in the Jayco Caravans car, as is Clyde Lawrence in his Subaru Impreza WRX. Perry Spiritus in the Maserati has just set the fastest lap time, 1:37.66 compared to Jimmy Richards' 1:37.97.
I think Jimmy's being a little conservative at the moment, but he's certainly got the race well under control. Jeff Morgan's tucking in. Positions remain as is. Darren Palmer unable to make any ground on Ed Aitken in the Porsche. That is a terrific shot as they come with the skyline in the background. There it is. Down Adelaide Straight. You couldn't ask for a prettier racetrack. And Adelaide have done it again. They have turned on a brilliant race meeting. We haven't even seen the V8s hit the track in race format yet, but it's been just brilliant so far.
Morgan again on the tail of the Cat Porsche. Aitken right in there as well. Palmer still hanging in there in the Ferrari F355. Richards has got, I think, they're pretty well covered though, Lee. I mean, he's doing it what appears to be quite easily. The car is certainly not getting too out of shape. He's driving conservatively. Of course, 12 laps around here is quite long. We saw him drive very, very hard last night, particularly after the safety car incident, and he pulled out about 5 or 6 seconds in 3 laps, and he was just sensational to watch the car on cold tyres after the safety car pulled off, and the man has certainly lost none of his ability.
He can do it when he needs to, and they come out of the hairpin corner onto the main straight and immediately swoop to the inside to get the good run through the centre chicane.
This is the Maguire's Class C for production cars over 2.5 litre. David Radcliffe, I should say, in the Camry going through to lead the class. In fact, I think Cohen in the Commodore has been forced back to third, and Chadwick in the new 3.5 litre V6 Magna up to second outright.
We should make mention too that this isn't a specialty event for these guys. This is part of the Century Batteries Australian GT Production Car Championship.
So Radcliffe going through, car 88, the man that was dominant last year in the championship and also took the win at Bathurst. These superb P6 engined 3-litre front-wheel drive Camrys. You don't normally think of a Camry as a race car, but I tell you what, he puts it to great effect, this thing.
It's been around for a little while and it's been quite competitive too. It is still Richards, Morgan, Aitken, Palmer, Linton, Perry Spiritus in the Maserati is up there to 6th, has pushed Jeff Full back to 7th from Chilton, Simpson, Elstrick rounding out your top 10.
With 5 laps down of 12 laps here at Adelaide, Jimmy Richards still well and truly in command of this race in the Cat Western Air Porsche. In fact, Darren Palmer has fallen off the trail of these 3 Porsches, so I don't know whether he's got problems with the car. You're right, Lee, we talked about Eastern Creek and the fact that the Ferrari caught on fire 2 weeks ago, and they found the engine was running so lean that it actually caused so much heat, the rear bump bar on the car caught alight. They've actually richen the top end of the engine up significantly, picked up about an extra 60 to 70 horsepower since the car raced at Eastern Creek. That is testing this week at Adelaide, and the car is certainly running a lot more competitive than what we saw it earlier this year.
Well, we've seen a few drivers in this seat, haven't we? Driving for Ross Palmer Motorsport, of course. John Bowe started it all in 1996, and we've seen, of course, Ross's son Darren. We've seen Neil Crompton in the car.
I've got to say hi to Aaron Kelly, one of the team members too, who's in hospital after an incident in the Ferrari pit yesterday when a rattle gun absolutely disintegrated and caused quite a bit of damage to young Aaron. So he's in there, stayed in overnight, so I'm sure he's watching it on television this afternoon.
It's that last camera shot. That's the real beauty about GTP racing. There was a Suzuki Swift GTI and a Ferrari F355 together on the track. You would see that nowhere else.
Well, we say this category's got the Porsches to the Protons, the Ferraris to the Falcons, of course the Suzukis to the Subarus. Every sort of manufacturer and model is just about represented in this category of motor racing.
And that part of the section there is a very tight section and a very difficult section. So we'll talk more about that later in the driver's feedback. So we have a look through the Century Battery scoreboard at the moment. Jim Richards leads the way from Jeff Morgan and Ed Aitken. Darren Palmer dropping off the pace just a little. Linton, Spiritus, Jeff Full still the top of Class B. More, your home of motorsport right after this.
8:30 something.
Welcome back. You're watching the GT Production Cars on the streets of Adelaide. This is the sensational Adelaide 500. And our first event of the weekend, the GTP cars away to a good start. Jimmy Richards is leading the way in the Caterpillar Porsche.
But this is the battle for first, second and third in Class C, the Maguire's over 2.5 litre class. David Ratcliffe in the Camry leading from Robert Chadwick. In the Mitsubishi Magnum, Mark Cohen, who won last night's race in Class C, back there in third spot in the big Commodore VSSS. So we've got V8 and then 2 V6 front-wheel drive cars in front of the Commodore.
Now, if you've got some bucks to burn, some money to spend, you can enter any of these categories. Of course, Class A are the supercars below $300,000. Class B, the high-performance cars below $87,000. I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the classes later on. Good category, very fast section of the circuit right here. Cars almost in top gear as they come screaming around to the tight right-hander before they head onto the main straight again in front of this very big crowd here on day 2 of the 3-day weekend. Sensational Adelaide 500, and that is your race leader. With 3 laps left to run, Jimmy Richards dominating again.
Well, 3 cars under the lap record now, which was set last night. Jimmy on a 1:35.07 is the fastest man on the track. The gap out to 1.2 tenths of a second. Jeff Morgan in the Vodafone Porsche running second. Aitken third. Darren Palmer in the Ferrari still fourth. As we see the Camry lock up a brake, and now Jimmy Richards having to work his way through these slower cars. Sensational part of GT production car racing is when, of course, they lap the slower cars in the smaller classes.
Well, it's going to be one of the concerns for the V8 supercar drivers later on this afternoon to last the distance, and that is avoiding what some of these guys are doing now, and that is locking up the tyres. It is a very hard course. At Cohen, there were some problems.
Yeah, I don't know whether he's maybe picked up some oil surge problems or something, but on certain corners around the track, it's pouring out heaps of smoke, unless he's actually creased a guard in over the rear wheel or something, but maybe problems there for Cohen.
There's your race update, bottom of screen, and the relative respective classes. Ed Aitken fighting away and has been steady in this one. He still holds on to third. With some ground to catch up on Jeff Morgan. Oh,
Morgan 2 wheels right out on the river strip that time. So is Aitken as this battle continues in Class C behind these 3 Porsches up the front. But Aitken has acquitted himself very well, always fast and always there, running sort of third, fourth. Very competitive driver, Ed. He's been around a number of times, raced Porsches for much of his racing career. This is a car that Jimmy Richards actually won the 1995 Australian GT Production Car Championship in. Now looked after by Peter Fitzgerald and Fitzgerald Racing Services in Melbourne.
2 laps to go.
Ed racing in Class A, the Maguire's top marks class for supercars under $300,000. And this is the leader in the up to 1.8 litre category. It's the Proton, the M21 Coupe of Cosi Calazidis, which has turned the tables on the Suzuki Swift, which has traditionally been the dominant car.
I was just about to say that. You've also had a Laser TX3 in there as well.
Yeah, Hyundai as well. But the Proton came good at Bathurst last year for its first win, and looks like repeating the dose again this weekend. Cosi, a young service manager from Melbourne, has worked hard to get the Proton M21 competitive, but is looking the goods.
The GT production category joining the V8s for the entire series this year. You can see them at most rounds of the Shell Championship Series. Calazidis brings it onto the main straight one more time.
And look at the monster behind him, will you? John Tulin in the Nissan Skyline, the 4-wheel drive, twin-turbo, 6-cylinder monster that, of course, in touring car racing some years ago, the late 80s, absolutely dominated both Bathurst and the Touring Car Championship with Jimmy Richards and Mark Scope behind the wheel.
Great for this category to be here on the streets of Adelaide. Another one of our Class E competitors as
Michael Simpson leading the sports car class, the Bruce Linton BMW M, not the M model, this is the 323 model that Merrick drove last year or the year before. Michael has acquitted himself very well. In fact, when you consider the car is actually running 11th outright, he's doing a tremendous job.
Linton stepping up from the 323i to the BMW M3R, and of course going up into Class A from Class S, the sports car category.
Nick Lucas in second spot in the Toyota MR2 in this class, but Simpson has been absolutely dominant. Throwing the car around, always drives it to the max. Car's well prepared by his father Ian and the rest of the team.
Here's your race leader, Jim Richards, just coming through on John Cowley in the big Commodore. There's a good battle for second spot between Ed Aitken and Jeff Morgan. The positions have remained as is. Now the Ferrari is still in 5th position, but some problems.
Yeah, in fact, his times have slowed considerably. Spiritus has got through in the Maserati, so Perry Spiritus up to 4th outright, which is a good drive considering he started well back after his incident last night. The car, of course, that Alfie Costanzo drove in the championship last year and took a win with the Sandown 1-hour race in.
Final run down, Adelaide straight through that tricky right-hander. We were talking about that. Some of the drivers have been saying, wow, you've got to get that corner so right, otherwise you will run wide and there'll be big damage. Here goes Ed Aitken on Jeff Morgan. The big inside move. Nice work, Ed Aitken.
Now, has he got the exit speed, or has Morgan got pulled alongside him? No, I think actually Aitken may well have got away with it.
Well, gee, he took his time to make the move because Ed Aitken's been in third all race long and then pounces in the dying moments. This is the run to home. Literally 2 corners and half the length of the main straight to go. Jim Richards will do this comfortably and make it 2 from 2.
I think he might have caught Jeff Morgan by surprise that time. I don't think he was quite prepared for that, but he made the move, and now Morgan makes a run down the outside and is going to do it. He'll reclaim second spot.
Nice work, Jeff Morgan. But Jimmy Richards is the man in the Caterpillar Porsche 911 RSCS. Well done, and it's Porsches 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Maybe Aitken got a slow run onto the straight here, as we see the battle continuing in the Autobahn high performance class with Full absolutely dominant in the Impreza WRX, battling with the Skyline of Tulin. This is the battle for 7th and 8th outright, and the Nissan taking the long way around the outside.
A little bit of damage to the front there. One of the indicators hanging off on Tulin's car. Looked like Jeff Full, he's driven a great race, finished on top at Eastern Creek in Class B, and will do the same again here today. Streaked away from the rest of the Class B competitors.
Yeah, second will go to Paula Elstrick in a good drive in the Mazda RX-7, and Peter Boylan in the Quirks refrigeration car will come through for third. But Fuller's put it all together, started from grid position 6, will finish 7th outright if he stays where he is. The hand comes out the window, and Jeff Full takes the checkered flag.
He'd be pretty rapt to beat John Tulin too in the Nissan.
Yeah, of course, plenty of potential yet to come from the Nissan. We haven't seen a lot of it on the track, but once it's developed, potential for close to 500 horsepower out of that car. So it'll get faster and faster as the year progresses, there's no doubt about that.
The gum trees that make this Adelaide circuit so beautiful have really done a tremendous job yet again. Michael Simpson bringing it home in the sports car category.
Yes, good drive from Michael, and always pushing the car to the absolute max. And a car that's, gee, I tell you what, it's done some miles in GT production over the years too. It's been around for about 3 seasons or so. It's almost as old as Bruce himself.
All right, let's have a look at the final results. Jim Richards, Jeff Morgan, Ed Aitken, your top 3. Perry Spirides in the Maserati got there for 4th, ahead of Palmer, Linton, Jeff Full, a very satisfied Jeff Full, and John Tulin. More right after this.
7:30 Monday.
Heaps of excitement, 5 classes in the GTP series, but Jimmy Richards was the only one giving them a lesson out there today. He's with Barry Sheen.
Well, not bad, Jim. 2 out of 2.
Yeah, Baz, I mean, this is a great little class. I mean, the guys that concentrate on this class and driving it all the time are very good drivers. So you've got to do your work pretty good to be able to beat them. So we're quite happy.
Yeah, you didn't look as if you were under too much pressure.
Well, I mean, it might not look that way, but when you're out there and you're trying to stay in front, there is a bit of pressure involved. But fortunately, if you're at the front, you can sort of dictate the pace and dictate where you go on the track, which sometimes is a little easier than being behind.
Class act as usual, Jim. Well done.
Thank you very much.